Rece Davis is with us now, game day host, and he's seen a ton of college basketball throughout the country this year. He's with us courtesy of MyBookie. Don't forget MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up to get that deposit bonus up to $2,000. Rece is with us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What's up, Rece? How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot. You know, we were just discussing how much, I think, to varying degrees, we enjoy conference tournament week when it's the big conferences like this. And I made the point of the Big 12. I mean, you're going to see Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, Baylor, all on the same floor on the same day coming up this week. That's a pretty incredible day of basketball.
Well, it's been the best tournament top to bottom. Some of the ACC people, have sort of pointed out that if you go 1 through 10 in their league or some of the other leagues, that their performance against other conferences has been just as good. And that's true by the numbers. But I think in terms of just high-level basketball, game in, game out, not really needing the teams at the top of the standings to play a terrible game in order to lose to a team at the bottom of the standings. There has not been anything like the Big 12 this year, and I suspect that the conference tournament will be the same. Of course, then I say that, and Kansas and Texas will walk right through it, and they'll play again on Saturday as the top 2 seeds. But there are a lot of capable teams there, and you better play as well as you possibly can, or you can get clipped pretty easily.
I know you and Hubert Davis are very close. You worked together for a long time, and in year one was just minutes away from winning a national championship, and they returned that big core of players, 4 starters, and they're 1-9 in quad one games. And there's a good chance they're not making the tournament. Are they the most surprising team, good or bad, in college basketball this year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's been disappointing. I think you can take a step back, and this is not to try to defend Hubert or whatever, which I would certainly do. I will, I'll die on that hill defending him. That guy's a tremendous coach and a better guy. But they are surprising. I think if you take a step back, maybe you look at it as a bit of more of a magical run last year, as opposed to really fulfilling total ability or something like that, reaching potential. I mean, that said, there's no question they've played below their potential this year. They just the chemistry has just been a little off for whatever reason. They haven't shot it well. Brady Manick sort of really helped them last year in being a real. That was really when they started playing well. Is he assumed control as a shooter, really helped them on the boards, and they just haven't made shots. I mean, you look down the gut of the 2 Duke games. They've had some looks, and they've been 0 for, like in the last, I think they were 0 for 6 in the first game and 0 for 7 Saturday night, or vice versa, down the last, 3 minutes or so of the game. And so they've been disappointing. There's no question about it. And I'm going to Greensboro for the ACC tournament this week, and they'll have to, I think they not only will have to make a deep run, they'll need a couple of impressive victories. If you look at the rest of the teams they're being compared against, it might be a little premature to say that they have to win the tournament, but it's not out of the question. It's the only surefire way to get them in. Were they to make the final, play well in the final, and beat someone of significance along the way, then maybe they could sneak in as an at-large. But they've certainly been disappointing. They put themselves in a precarious position, but things happen sometimes. It's sports. Sometimes teams don't play to their potential, and it just doesn't work out. And that's just the way it's been for Carolina this year.
The scenarios are very different, but we're sort of reliving something we lived through in our area last year. I thought Auburn was playing as good as anybody in January last year, and then they sort of faltered down the stretch and lost early in the tournament. Alabama in December and January were playing about as good as anybody in the country, and they still won some games this week. They lost at Texas A&M, but they just seem to not be running at full speed right now. Can you give me a thought on where you think Alabama is right now as we get to postseason?
I don't think it's any secret, man. There's no way to prove it, and there's no way to disprove it. And without debating the merits of the case or the decisions that were made surrounding it, but they're playing like a team that's got the weight of the world on their back. They're not making shots. I think they're playing hard. In the games I've seen, the portions of the games I've seen, I don't sense any lack of effort or lack of energy. There's They're just not playing well. They're playing like a team that's burdened. And, there are a couple of exceptions to that. Brandon Miller has still put up numbers. Javon Quinterly has, tried to single-handedly save them and did, at least once. But, that's what it looks like to me. And the question is, can they sort of get in the right mental space? Because I think we talked about this a little bit last week. They're going to be the villain in the tournament. And I don't say that lightly because I realize where basketball stands compared to the significance of the issues surrounding them. But you've heard it every time they've gone on the road. And it's going to maybe not be as intense because the crowds will be mixed in neutral sites with a variety of different fans. But they're not going to be the team anyone roots for a couple of reasons. One, the fact that they're the number one seed. And the other, I assume they're still going to be a number one seed. And the other factor will be the other things going on. So it's they play like a burdened team to me right now, and we'll see if they're able to overcome that. I may be completely wrong, but it seems like it's something that is it's not just they're in a little bit of a shooting slump. Maybe they are. Maybe a few days off before playing in the SEC tournament will let them get their their field goal percentage back where they would like it, particularly from behind the arc. But they've really struggled. To shoot the basketball.
ESPN's Rece Davis with us each week throughout the tournament, and he's presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up to get that deposit bonus up to $2,000 with MyBookie.ag. Code next round. On the other side of that game Saturday is Texas A&M, Rece, and Buzz Williams has got this team playing very well right now. Your colleague Joe Lunardi has them as a 7 seed. That would strike me with a coach that's been to 4 Sweet 16s and an Elite 8. And the way that team is playing right now, that would strike me as a very dangerous 7 seed if that's where they fell.
I agree with that because it's also a stylistic thing. I mean, they are a difficult team to play. I think you heard Jay Wright mention it in covering the game on Saturday that it takes a little while if you haven't seen them to settle in to how they play. And because of that, I think when you see a team for the first time, which in all likelihood will be the case in the NCAA tournament, I certainly think they can be they can be a really dangerous team. The tournament's such a funny thing, though, simply because you look at teams that get hot in a conference tournament and you think they're really playing their best basketball. Virginia Tech last year, which won the ACC tournament, really shooting it, really precise on offense, and then they were an early out in the NCAA tournament. So sometimes momentum is a funny thing. Fatigue can play into it depending on what type of run you make in the conference tournament and whether that energizes you or takes something out of you. And all of these are nebulous things. Probably my buddy Seth Greenberg would say it's more about how you defend the ball screen and whether you choose to play drop coverage or whether you run a little horn set or some such thing. But I think there's a lot of the mental side of it in the tournament and whether you go in with some energy or whether a lot of times a team like Texas A&M or like Virginia Tech last year, which I guess is ironic since Buzz was there before he went to A&M. But teams that feel like that they've had to struggle so hard to accomplish something, sometimes, and then once they get to the tournament, sometimes it's hard to recapture that. And I think that was the case certainly for Virginia Tech last year. Texas A&M is probably a little bit different, but when you consider how poorly they started the season, there might be a little bit of that at play for them too, now that they've played their way into this position. But by and large, I agree with you. I think, wherever they're seeded, 6, 7, 8, wherever they may fall, they'll be a tough out for whoever faces them.
Rece, who do you believe can make a deeper run, Kentucky or UConn?
Can I say both? I think UConn, I'll say this. I'll say UConn because I don't think Kentucky can win the national championship. If I had to pick somebody right now in terms of the way they're playing, I would probably pick Kentucky to win the SEC tournament. Right now, we've talked a little bit about Alabama's struggles. Tennessee's lost to Kai Ziegler. Texas A&M's terrific, but I think Kentucky's playing really well right now. So Kentucky can certainly make a run, but I think UConn can win the national championship. They've got size, they've got shooting, they're tough. They went through a little stretch midseason where they didn't necessarily play their best basketball. But it wouldn't shock me to see either or both of those teams in Houston.
Bruce and Auburn got a big win over Tennessee this weekend, likely punching Auburn's ticket. Without Ziegler, Tennessee seems to be in a totally different place now. What do you make of Tennessee as we get to the brackets?
They'll still do well. They're still a threat because they guard. And look, Ziegler was a big part of that. He's really difficult to handle because he stays so low to the floor and does so much for their offense. But he gets up under you defensively, and they certainly are going to miss that. There's no dancing around it. But they've still got a lot of good players. They're still just, rugged on defense. So I don't think that it's all over for Tennessee by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly the margin for error is much, much smaller without a guy that's been so important to them on both ends of the floor.
I want to go back. You said you were going to be at the ACC tournament. Boy, this last few weeks for Pittsburgh, I mean, there was a time where Jeff Capel had them looking like they were going to win the ACC regular season. And I mentioned Lenardi again. He's got them barely clinging in the tournament. It feels like they might do some damage or might need to do some damage in Greensboro. It's been a tough couple of weeks for them.
Well, they might be the team that epitomizes this season more than any other. Because if I'm not mistaken, I was at the Duke, North Carolina game at the same time that Pittsburgh and Miami were playing Saturday night. But I believe Pittsburgh had a shot, not like a literal shot. That would have won the game. And had they won the game, they would have been the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. But they lost the game, and so they're on the bubble. Now, there are a lot of factors in that. If you beat Miami at their place and you're the number 1 seed, then that's certainly something that looks strong on your resume. But I think they'll end up making it because of the way they played through the course of the season. But they are the epitome. They are the case study in the team of how thin the margins are, even for teams that finish really high in the standings. Clemson has been in a similar situation. They've been close to the top of the ACC standings all season long, and they're kind of hovering in that nether world too.
I've got a friend that grew up, and you could speak on this. He grew up in North Carolina, was not a particular fan of a given school, but loved ACC basketball, and used to tell me stories about how you could get out of school for the ACC tournament in Greensboro, and when he saw it go to Brooklyn, he said a little piece of him died. How big, I mean, does it still have that same big ACC tournament feel when it's back in Greensboro the way it once did?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the ACC tournament in a number of places over the years, and it is probably that along with the old Big East tournament. And really, Big East tournament still carries a lot of weight. But they were the ones who had that big event feel more consistently than any of the others I've been to over the years. But there is something historic and nostalgic about it being in Greensboro. You worry less about the big team fan bases departing. You brought up Pittsburgh. We were wondering the other day, okay, Pittsburgh has great basketball fans. If this tournament were in Brooklyn, you'd have a huge Pittsburgh contingent, I think, at the games for as long as they want. Will you in Greensboro? I don't know. But all of the North Carolina schools, including State, and Wake Forest too, when you say the North Carolina schools, you often think of just Duke and Carolina. But when you have Wake, State, they'll have big fan bases. I think State's got some pretty high hopes of how they might perform this week too. So there'll be a nostalgic feel to it. There are certainly some amenities at the Barclays Center that aren't afforded, in some of the other venues. Charlotte, is a great venue for it as well. But it'll be it'll be a nostalgic feel, and I think it's cool that they rotate Greensboro back into the mix for the ACC tournament.
Yeah, we're in the clicks and views business now on our digital platform. So if you want to go ahead and announce that college football game day will be in Dublin in week 0, go ahead. If you're packing already, let me know.
Well, let me hold off on that one a little bit, but I will tell you that one of our guys who's on both sports, one of our security guys now, we were kind of taking a little peek ahead to the first 2 or 3 weeks to see where we might be for college game day football, but not quite ready to break that out just yet.
Right. If you start shipping your clubs across the big pond, I'll know you're headed.
Didn't Brock tell us that?
All right, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think Brock told us he did the game from America, right? On Fox.
That's right,
yeah,
they did.
Yeah, if the Fox is not even sending the play-by-play guys, ESPN may not send Rece in the game.
Oh, that's not true.
Rece.
We had, you know what? The thing is, before the COVID situation, we had. You should have seen the setup that we had for Notre Dame and Navy, the photographs that they sent back, and what we had planned for College Game Day that year was going to be spectacular. And it's one of the things that we were really sad to miss out on that year, because we had the game, and it was going to be a huge event. It was a shame that it didn't work out, because that was going to be quite the spectacle.
All right, week 2, Bama, Texas, and Tuscaloosa. Seems like a good spot.
Pretty good bet.
Yeah.
Pretty good bet.
Rece, thank you very much for the time. Enjoy the ACC tournament. We'll see you next Monday.
All right, guys. See you later.
All right, Rece Davis with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Rece joins us courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Don't forget code next round when you're at MyBookie.ag. You sign up with that next round code. Your sign-on bonus up to $2,000 is yours to use instantly, and you get it after one bet. One bet, no strings attached on that $2,000, up to $2,000. MyBookie.ag, code next round.